The Arizona desert in 1888 stretched like a vast, unyielding expanse of red sand, its surface rippling under the merciless glare of a midday sun that transformed the horizon into a shimmering mirage of heat and desolation. Sagebrush Hollow, a remote homestead nestled between rugged mesas and scattered creosote bushes, baked under a sky devoid of mercy, its cracked earth whispering tales of survival, loss, and resilience. Amid the harsh wilderness, Samuel Holt stood outside his weathered cabin, his broad shoulders stooped beneath a sun-faded shirt patched with rough stitches, his boots worn thin from years of solitary toil across the arid plains. At 41, his face was a rugged map of lines etched by grief and isolation, a faint scar across his forehead a memento of a stampede that had claimed his last horse 2 seasons ago. His hat, battered and sweat-stained, shaded gray eyes that carried a quiet despair. A settler alone since his wife perished in a drought-induced famine, and his crops failed, leaving him with a hoe, a rifle, and a heart heavy with unhealed wounds that weighed on his spirit with every parched breath. He'd come outside to tend his meager garden, the dry soil yielding only a few wilted stalks of corn, his last hope after months of scarcity. The homestead was a rare haven, its solitude a stark contrast to the chaos of towns, its silence broken only by the creak of wind against the wooden walls and the occasional buzz of a fly circling the dying plants. As Samuel hoed the earth, a sound pierced the stillness, a faint, rasping cough, barely audible over the wind, coming from the direction of the dry arroyo beyond the corral. He turned, his hand instinctively on his rifle, and froze. There, slumped against a rock in the shadow of the arroyo, was a young native boy, no older than 8, his small frame trembling with fever, his dark hair matted with dust and sweat, his buckskin shirt torn and faded, his brown eyes wide with a mix of pain and desperation. A small woven pouch hung at his waist, its contents a mystery, and his presence was a shock, an enigma in Samuel's solitary world, stirring a memory his own son, lost to the same fever that had ravaged the plains, a loss that had left him hollow and questioning his purpose. Samuel dropped his hoe, rushing to the boy's side, his hands gentle as he checked his pulse, finding it weak, but present. "I'm Samuel Holt," he said, his voice gruff but kind. "Can you move?" The boy, his voice a whisper strained by illness, replied, "I am Quayo. Help, please." With a grunt of effort, Samuel lifted him, carrying the frail figure into the cabin, the heat pressing against his back. Inside, the dim light revealed the boy's condition more clearly: flushed cheeks, labored breathing, and a body burning with fever. Samuel stoked the fire, using his last clean cloth to wipe Quayo's brow and melting water from a barrel to offer in a tin cup. Quayo drank slowly, his strength flickering, his presence a disruption to Samuel's solitude. "Why help me?" Quayo asked, his voice hoarse but curious, his brown eyes searching Samuel's face. Samuel met his gaze, his scar itching under the sun. "Lost my boy once to this fever. Can't leave you to die like that." Quayo's lips tightened, but gratitude flickered in his expression, a reflection of a life shaped by hardship and hope. As the fire crackled, Samuel prepared a meager broth from his last dried herbs and a scrap of meat, offering it to Quayo. "Eat," he said. "It's all I've got." Quayo accepted with a nod, his hands trembling as he sipped, the act forging an unspoken bond between them, a thread of compassion in the dust. The next morning, as the sun climbed higher, the hollow's quiet, shattered footsteps approached, hundreds of them, soft yet purposeful, stirring the sand into a cloud of dust. Samuel grabbed his rifle, Quayo rising with a weak grip on the pouch, and peered out to see them. A vast throng of Apache people, their faces painted with earth tones, their spears, bows, and baskets glinting in the sunlight, led by a tall woman with a commanding presence. She dismounted, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her dark hair tied back with a leather strip, her face lined with the strain of leadership, her brown eyes meeting Samuel's with a mix of gratitude and wariness. "I am Sita," she said, her voice steady. "Quayo is my nephew. Thank you for aiding him." Samuel lowered his rifle, his heart pounding. "Found him sick, brought him in." Sita stepped closer, her hands steady as she knelt beside Quayo. "Raiders attacked our camp, left him to die of fever. We've been searching for him." She embraced the boy, relief cutting through the dust on her face. Samuel's mind raced. Raiders meant trouble, and this woman's arrival with hundreds confirmed it. "Stay," he said, the words slipping out. "You're safe here." Sita's eyes narrowed, assessing him. Why take us in? Settlers like you often take, not give. Samuel shrugged, his scar prickling. Lost my family. Can't turn away yours. That afternoon the homestead buzzed with quiet activity. Quayo ate sparingly from a plate Samuel prepared, his strength returning, his pouch held tight. Sita tended the fire, her hands skilled, her people unloading supplies, herbs, blankets, tools stacked outside like an offering. We can't stay long, Sita said. Raiders hunt us led by Cole. They seek our healing rights. Samuel's stomach tightened. Cole's name was a curse, a bandit who plundered Apache lands, his greed a shadow over the hollow. What rights? He asked. Sita hesitated, then opened the pouch, revealing a small, intricately woven amulet, its surface etched with symbols. A tribal charm. It guides our healing. Cole killed for it. The revelation hit Samuel like a gust. Such relics were coveted, a lure that had ruined men, but Quayo's life and his people's safety were worth more. I'll protect you, he said, his resolve firming, though doubt gnawed at him about the amulet's power. As the fire crackled, hoofbeats echoed in the distance, growing louder. Samuel grabbed his rifle, Sita rising with a spear, Quayo clutching the pouch. Shadows loomed 3 riders, their coats dusted with sand, their hats marked with Cole's gang insignia. The leader, a burly man with a scarred face, dismounted. Holt, he barked. That kid's ours. Cole wants him back. Samuel's jaw tightened. He's free, he said, his rifle steady. Ride off or we fight. The man laughed, drawing a pistol. You're a dead man, settler. Quayo moved with surprising strength, his pouch striking the man's hand, disarming him. Samuel fired, his shot grazing another rider's shoulder, sending them scattering. The third fled, shouting threats. Cole'll burn you out. Samuel lowered his rifle, his heart pounding. Sita's eyes met his, a flicker of respect breaking through. You didn't have to, she said. Samuel wiped sweat from his brow, his scar itching. Ain't right. What they did. I've got my own ghosts. They settled in, the tribe's gratitude a quiet bond. Sita offered Samuel the amulet. For your kindness, she said, and a warning. Cole plans an attack. The desert stretched vast, its silence a promise of more trials. But Samuel's act of mercy had ignited a spark, a family forged in dust and healing, with Cole's wrath looming on the horizon. As the tribe began tending to Samuel's sick cattle with their herbs and chants, a flicker of hope stirred in his chest, though he knew the peace was fragile. The Arizona desert unfurled like a relentless sea of red sand as Samuel Holt, Quayo, and the Apache tribe, led by Sita, ventured away from Sagebrush Hollow, the sun dipping low to cast long shadows across the arid expanse. Samuel led the way on foot, his sun-faded shirt patched with rough stitches clinging to his broad frame with sweat, his worn boots crunching through the shifting dunes, his hoe slung over his shoulder alongside his rifle. His face, rugged with a scar across his forehead, bore a mixture of determination and unease, his gray eyes scanning the horizon for signs of Cole's outlaws, a quiet resolve battling the weight of his past solitude. Quayo, the young native boy of 8, walked beside him, his tattered buckskin shirt fluttering, his small woven pouch with the tribal amulet swaying at his waist, his brown eyes brightening with returning health, though still shadowed by his recent ordeal. Sita followed, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her hands carrying a spear and a bundle of healing herbs, her tall frame exuding a leader's protectiveness, flanked by dozens of Apache warriors, their faces painted with earth tones, their weapons and baskets glinting in the fading light. The journey to a hidden tribal camp near Red Canyon, a 2-day trek, was their goal, but the desert held other trials to test their fragile alliance. Their water was scarce, the canteen they'd salvaged from Sagebrush Hollow reduced to a few tepid drops, their supplies dwindled to a strip of jerky and a handful of desert figs Sita had foraged. The heat beat down, its intensity a relentless adversary, the silence broken only by the rasp of their breathing, the crunch of sand, and the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. Samuel's mind churned with the previous day's events, his impulsive aid to Quayo, the arrival of the tribe with their healing, the threat of Cole. He'd helped the boy to ease his own guilt, but their presence now drew danger, a price he hadn't foreseen. He offered Quayo water, a gesture of goodwill, his hand trembling slightly from the heat. Quayo accepted, his eyes narrowing. Why help me still? He asked, his voice weak but curious. Samuel met his gaze, his scar itching under the sun. Lost my son once to fever. Can't leave you to suffer like that. Cuello's expression softened, but suspicion lingered, a reflection of a life shaped by hardship and mistrust. Sita and the warriors walked with a quiet dignity, their buckskin garments rustling softly, the amulet catching the fading light. Sita shared their story as they moved, her voice low and resonant. Cole's outlaws raided our camp, stole our livestock, killed many. Cuello was left sick to weaken us. We've tracked him since, fearing their return. Cuello added, his tone firm despite his frailty. He wants our healing rites. A warrior, Tala muttered. He'll stop at nothing. Samuel's heart sank. The amulet was a magnet for death, a lure that had ruined men. But Cuello's life and his people's safety were worth more. I'll keep you safe, he said, his resolve firming, though doubt gnawed at him about the relic's power. Their progress halted at midday when they reached a trading post tucked into a dry arroyo dust haven, a haven for outlaws and wanderers. Samuel needed supplies, his stores depleted after the tribe's arrival, but Sita tensed. Danger here, she warned. Men talk. Samuel nodded, his rifle ready. Inside, the air was stifling, the stench of sweat and stale tobacco thick. A trader named Gus Reed, a wiry man with a crooked grin and shifty eyes, leaned against a crate, his gaze narrowing. Samuel Holt, he said. Heard you took in Apache runaways. Cole's offering a bounty. Samuel's jaw tightened, his past with land disputes flashing. Mind your own, Gus. Reed smirked, his gaze on the pouch. $300 says I tell him where you're headed. Cuello's pouch flashed, striking Reed's arm, forcing him back. Speak, and you're done, he hissed, his voice stronger than expected. Samuel stepped forward, his rifle aimed. Walk away, Gus. This ain't your fight. Reed paled, retreating, his laughter echoing. Cole'll hunt you down. Samuel cursed under his breath. Reed's treachery would lead Cole straight to Red Canyon. We move now, he said. The tribe's respect grew, their trust a tentative thread. You're brave, Tala said. Samuel shook his head, the weight of his past pressing down. I've been weak. The ambush came at dusk. Hoofbeats thundered through the sand, and 4 of Cole's men, led by a scar-faced rider named Red Jack, surrounded them near a rocky outcrop. Hand over the kid, settler. Red Jack barked, his rifle raised. Samuel fired, his shot grazing Red Jack's arm, sending him staggering. Cuello threw a rock, striking another's shoulder, while Sita's spear fell to third. Samuel's second shot dropped a rider, the outcrop falling silent. Save for the wind's moan, the 4th fled, shouting threats. Cole'll burn you out. They took cover behind the rocks, bandaging minor cuts, the heat seeping into their exhaustion. Sita's eyes met Samuel's, her suspicion easing. You fight for us, she said. Samuel wiped sweat from his brow, his scar itching. Ain't right, what Cole did. I've got regrets of my own. Cuello nodded, his pain surfacing. He killed my father for the amulet. Samuel's breath caught the relic was the key, a prize worth killing for. We'll keep it safe, he said, his resolve hardening. Their bond deepened as they rested. Samuel sharing his canteen, Sita offering figs from her pouch. Why carry that amulet? He asked Cuello. The boy held it up, its symbols glowing faintly. It holds our healing rites. Cole wants them to sell. Samuel's heart ached, his losses echoing theirs. I lost my wife to fever, lived alone since. Tala's gaze softened. We're all alone then. Maybe we stay together. The night stretched ahead, the desert vast, but the threat of Cole grew. Samuel taught Cuello to use his hoe, the boy's hands steady despite his youth, their partnership a lifeline. Sita showed him Apache tracking signs, their trust aflame against the desert's grip. You're strong, Samuel said. Cuello smiled, a rare light in his eyes. You too, father. The tribe watched, their kinship deepening, a family forged in the crucible of the desert, but the peace was fleeting. Hoofbeats returned, closer now Red Jack and his men, relentless as the sun. Samuel chose a defensible ridge, setting up with the tribe behind rocks. We fight if we must, he said, his rifle ready. Sita nodded, her spear poised. Red Jack's men appeared, their rifles glinting. Last chance, Holt, Red Jack shouted. Samuel fired, his shot dropping a rider, but an arrow grazed Sita's arm, drawing a cry. Cuello shielded her, his pouch a talisman, while Tala's spear felled too, forcing the attackers to retreat. They bandaged Sita's arm, Samuel's hands gentle. You're all my family now, he said. Sita's eyes met his, a warmth breaking through. And you're ours. The desert tested them, its trials forging a bond, but Cole's wrath loomed larger, a storm they'd face together. Red Canyon was near, but so was their reckoning. The Arizona desert sprawled like an unyielding furnace of red sand, its surface baking under the relentless glare of a midday sun that transformed the air into a shimmering haze of heat and dust. Samuel, Holt, Quayo, and the Apache tribe led by Sita pressed onward, the wagon creaking behind Samuel's steady hands, the weary mule straining through the shifting dunes with a labored gait. Samuel's sun-faded shirt, patched with rough stitches, clung to his broad frame with sweat, his worn boots sinking into the sand, his hoe slung over his shoulder alongside his rifle. His face, rugged with a scar across his forehead, bore a determined set, his gray eyes scanning the horizon for signs of Cole's outlaws, a quiet resolve battling the weight of his past solitude. Quayo, the young native boy of 8, walked beside him, his tattered buckskin shirt fluttering, his small woven pouch with the tribal amulet swaying at his waist, his brown eyes bright with returning health, though still shadowed by his recent ordeal. Sita followed, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her hands carrying a spear and a bundle of healing herbs, her tall frame exuding a leader's protectiveness, flanked by dozens of Apache warriors, their faces painted with earth tones, their weapons and baskets glinting in the fading light. The hidden tribal camp near Red Canyon, their destination, was a day's journey, but the desert held other trials to forge their resilience. Their water was nearly gone, the canteen they'd salvaged from Dust Haven reduced to a few tepid drops, their supplies dwindled to a strip of jerky and a handful of desert figs Sita had foraged. The heat beat down, its intensity a relentless adversary, the silence broken only by the rasp of their breathing, the creak of the wagon, and the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. Samuel's mind wrestled with his past, his wife's death to fever, his years of isolation, a guilt that shadowed his every step. The presence of Quayo and the tribe, a mirror to his loneliness, stirred a compassion he'd buried, their resilience a challenge to his despair. We need to find water soon, Samuel said, his voice hoarse from the dry air. Sita nodded, pointing to a faint shadow on the horizon. There's a dry wash ahead. It might hold a spring, she replied, her Apache wisdom guiding them through the wasteland. The tribe's silence, broken only by soft murmurs and the occasional rustle of herbs, hinted at their vigilance. The amulet, a burden they carried together. They reached the dry wash as the sun peaked, its shade a fleeting mercy against the scorching heat. Samuel checked the wagon, its wheels wobbling from the rough terrain, while Quayo and a warrior named Tala scouted for signs of life, their movements quick despite their exhaustion. The wash offered a shallow pool, its water brackish but drinkable, a rare oasis in the desert's grip. Samuel filled the canteen, offering it to Tala first, his hands trembling slightly from the heat. Drink, friend, he said, the word warm with care. Tala accepted, his eyes softening. Thank you, Samuel, he murmured, a rare nod breaking through his stoic demeanor. The moment was brief, but it deepened their bond, a thread of trust weaving through their shared struggle. The desert's heat struck at noon. A sandstorm brewed on the horizon, a roiling wall of red dust that swallowed the sky, its roar a challenge to their endurance. Get down, Samuel shouted, pulling Quayo, Sita, and the wagon behind a boulder, the warriors joining them. The storm hit like a living entity, its force tearing at their clothes, dust clogging their throats and stinging their eyes. Samuel shielded Quayo with his body, Sita and the warriors huddling close, the tempest raging for hours, leaving them buried in drifts, their water spilled into the sand. As it passed, the desert revealed a new peril, an outlaw trap, a pit concealed by sand, its stakes glinting near Sita's foot. Samuel reacted instantly, yanking her back, the trap snapping shut inches from her. Quayo's quick thinking with a stick dislodged the mechanism, saving them. Good save, Samuel said, his respect for them growing. Sita nodded, her gaze steady. The desert tests our will, she replied. That night, they camped in the wash's lee, a small fire their only warmth, its glow casting shadows on the sandy walls. The storm had delayed them, the camp still a day away, and Samuel's mind churned with guilt, his wife's death, his years of isolation, now this tribe's fight. Tala offered him a fig, his hands gentle. You fight for us, he said. Why? Samuel poked the fire, his face shadowed. I turned away from help once my wife paid for it. Can't do that again. Quayo's eyes softened, his pain surfacing. Cole killed my father, took our home. The confession hung heavy, a mirror to Samuel's regrets. Strength ain't just in healing, he said. It's in standing together. Sita leaned against him, her voice small. The amulet holds our rights. Cole wants them to profit. Samuel's heart ached, his losses echoing theirs. I lost my wife to fever, lived alone since. Nita's gaze met his, a warmth breaking through. We're all lost then. Maybe we find kin. Their talk was interrupted by a rustle. Apache figures emerged from the dusk, led by a stout man with a painted face. I am Kono, Sita's brother, he said, his voice cautious. We saw the storm. Cole hunts you. He offered a water skin, his eyes on Quayo. You're alive, nephew. We thought you lost. Quayo ran to him, tears in his eyes. Samuel saved me. Kono nodded, offering Samuel a feathered cord. Your kin now, settler. The reunion was brief but heartfelt. Kono's warriors, 20 strong, joined them, their spears glinting. Cole's tracker, Red Jack, is near, Kono warned. He plans an attack at dawn. Samuel's heart steadied, his bond with the tribe a shield. We'll be ready, he said. Quayo's hand found his trust a beacon. You're my father, he whispered. The words warmed him, a redemption he hadn't sought. The peace shattered as the first light crept over the horizon. Hoofbeats echoed. Red Jack and 15 riders, their rifles ready, their intent clear in the pre-dawn gloom. Kono's men melted into the sand dunes, leaving Samuel and the tribe exposed on the ridge. Hold, Kono whispered, but Samuel stood firm, his rifle raised, the weight of the warning settling in. Red Jack's voice cut through the heat. Give up the kid, halt or die. Samuel fired, his shot grazing a rider, but an arrow struck Sita's leg, drawing a cry. Quayo shielded her, his pouch a talisman, while Kono's spear felled too, forcing Red Jack to retreat momentarily. They bandaged Sita's leg, Samuel's hands gentle. You're all my family now, he said. Sita's eyes met his, a warmth breaking through. And you're ours. The desert tested them, its trials forging a bond. But Cole's attack loomed larger, a storm they'd faced together. Red Canyon was near, but so was their reckoning. Red Canyon rose like a jagged scar across the Arizona desert, its rocky ravine of red sandstone and weathered outcrops, standing defiant against the encroaching dusk. The sun dipped low, casting a fiery glow across the canyon's rim, the air thick with the scent of sun-scorched earth and the faint promise of a cooling night breeze following the day's relentless heat. Samuel Holt, Quayo, and the Apache tribe led by Sita and Kono, prepared for their stand, the tension palpable in the stillness, heightened by the warning of an impending attack. Samuel's sun-faded shirt, patched with rough stitches, was torn at the hem, his worn boots caked with dust and blood from his grazed side, his hoe and rifle poised despite the ache in his muscles. His face, rugged with a scar across his forehead, bore a grim determination, his gray eyes shadowed by the weight of his past solitude. Quayo, the young native boy of 8, stood beside him, his tattered buckskin shirt fluttering, his leg wound bandaged, his small woven pouch with the tribal amulet clutched tightly, his brown eyes bright with resolve. Sita followed, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her arm wound bandaged, her hands wielding a spear, her tall frame exuding a leader's protectiveness, flanked by dozens of Apache warriors, their faces painted with earth tones, their weapons and herbs ready for battle. The journey to this refuge had forged their bond, now tested by Cole's ruthless pursuit. The canyon offered strategic ground, steep drops for ambushes, rocky outcrops for cover, and a narrow pass for traps. Samuel fortified a vantage point with Kono's men, his hands calloused from years of farming, now skilled in war. Quayo rigged tripwires with sinew, his movements precise despite his exhaustion, his pouch a constant reminder of their burden. The warriors assisted, stacking stones with precision, their vigilance unwavering. Cole wants the amulet, Sita said, her voice low and strained. He'll kill us for it. Samuel nodded, his guilt over past isolation fueling his resolve. We hold him here, he replied. A warrior named Tala handed him a sharpened stake, a silent pledge of unity, the weapon's weight a comfort in his hands. Kono distributed spears and arrows, his warriors blending into the canyon's shadows, their movements silent and deadly. Red Jack leads them, he warned. The attack is imminent. Samuel's heart steadied, his bond with the tribe a shield against the encroaching dark. "We fight as family," he said. Quayo's eyes met his, a flicker of trust breaking through his pain. "You're my father," he said, his words a balm to Samuel's wounded spirit. The sentiment lingered, a redemption he hadn't dared hope for. As the wind carried the distant sound of approaching hooves, the warning now a stark reality. As dusk deepened, the air grew taut with anticipation, the canyon silence broken by the crunch of boots on gravel. Cole rode in with 15 men, Red Jack at his side, the tracker's scar-faced grin a harbinger of violence. Cole, a broad man in a black duster lined with stolen pelts, dismounted and called out, his voice a thunderclap against the cliffs. "Holt, hand over the kid and that amulet, or this canyon becomes your tomb." Samuel stepped forward, his rifle raised, his voice firm despite the heat. "You'll have to take them over my dead body, Cole," he shouted, his breath visible in the cooling air. The stand erupted like a desert tempest. Cole's men charged, their rifles and revolvers spitting fire through the dusk. Samuel's first shot dropped a rider, the bullet finding its mark with a precision honed by necessity. Kono's warriors struck from the shadows, their spears felling 2 more, their movements silent and deadly. Quayo triggered a tripwire, a dynamite cache salvaged from an old trader's stash exploding and sending a shower of sand and rock, scattering the attackers. But Cole's numbers were overwhelming, and Red Jack's rifle was a relentless predator, his bullet grazing Samuel's leg, drawing a sharp hiss of pain. Sita pulled him behind a boulder, her arm wound seeping anew. "Stay alive," she growled, loosing a spear that struck a man's chest, her aim unwavering despite her fatigue. The canyon became a battlefield, its echoes ringing with gunfire and the thud of falling bodies. Samuel fired again, dropping another rider, the heat numbing his hands but not his resolve. Kono's warriors fought with primal fury, their spears piercing the fray, while Tala and the warriors lobbed rocks, their forms a surprising force. But Cole's voice cut through the chaos. "Quayo, give me the amulet's secret, or they all die." He held a pistol to Kono's head, the warrior's spear shattered, his eyes defiant. Quayo's heart sank, his pouch clutched tight. "No," he cried, his voice raw with emotion. Samuel's mind raced he couldn't lose another son. He signaled Kono's men to hold, his gaze locking with Sita's, a silent plea for a plan. Sita stepped forward, her stance defiant despite her wounds. "Cole betrayed my tribe," she shouted, her voice carrying over the wind. "He sold our people to settlers for gold, left us to die when we resisted." The revelation hit Samuel like a thunderclap. Cole's greed wasn't just for the amulet, but for the healing rites it guarded, a secret her tribe had protected. Cole laughed, his pistol steady. "Then you all die with your lies." But Sita moved, shoving Samuel and Quayo aside as Red Jack fired, the bullet tearing through her chest. She fell, blood pooling in the dust, her spear slipping from her grasp. "Samuel, no!" he roared, lunging to her side, his hands trembling as he pressed against the wound. Kono's warriors charged, their spears a blur, felling 3 men in a surge of vengeance. Tala struck with a rock, stunning a rider, while Quayo threw his pouch, distracting another. Samuel tackled Red Jack, their struggle a tangle of fists and sand, until his hoe crushed the tracker's skull, ending the threat. Cole roared, charging with his pistol, but Kono's spear pierced his side, bringing him down. The remaining outlaws fled, their horses vanishing into the dusk. Samuel knelt beside Sita, his hands stained with her blood, his heart breaking as he tried to stem the flow. "Hold on," he pleaded, his voice cracking with emotion. Her eyes met his, a faint smile breaking through the pain. "You're my brother now," she rasped. "Protect him. The amulet is our future." Her hand fell, her spirit slipping into the desert's embrace, her sacrifice, a final act of trust. Kono bound Cole, his men finishing the fight, the canyon falling silent save for the wind's mournful wail. Cole was defeated, his men scattered, but Sita's loss was a wound deeper than the heat. Samuel cradled her, tears mixing with the dust on his face, the weight of her words sinking in. Quayo, Tala, and the warriors approached, placing the amulet, a woven mat, and herbs on her chest. "She was our leader," Quayo said, his voice thick. "Now she's with our ancestors." The Apache carried her to a pyre, their chants rising, a tribute to her courage that echoed through the canyon. Samuel stood, his guilt eased by her forgiveness, his promise to protect Quayo a new purpose. The canyon smoldered, the air heavy with loss and victory. Kono offered Samuel a place with the tribe, and he nodded. "I'll honor her at the camp," he said, his voice steady. The journey to Red Canyon had broken Cole's grip, but Sita's sacrifice would resonate in the desert's silence. Samuel's redemption was hers, and the amulet, her people's legacy, would remain guarded. The dawn broke over Red Canyon, a fragile light spilling across the red sands, where the embers of Sita's pyre glowed like the last whispers of a fading hope. The air was thick with the lingering scent of smoke and the dry, earthy aroma of the desert, the vast Arizona wilderness reclaiming the battlefield with a quiet, unyielding peace. Samuel Holt stood at the canyon's edge, his sun-faded shirt torn and dusted with ash, his worn boots planted firmly in the sand, his hoe and rifle resting against a boulder. His face, rugged with a scar across his forehead, bore the weight of grief, his gray eyes glistening with unshed tears, the guilt of his past solitude softened by Sita's final words. The woven pouch with the tribal amulet, her strange reward, hung around his neck on a cord, a symbol of the kinship that had brought him to this moment. Cole, bound and defeated, slumped against a rock, his outlaw reign shattered, his greed no match for the courage of a settler and his adopted tribe. Quayo, the young native boy, stood beside him, his tattered buckskin shirt fluttering, his small hands clutching the pouch, his brown eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and hope. Kono, Tala, and the Apache warriors flanked them, their painted faces etched with both loss and pride. The Apache warriors, led by Kono, moved with a solemn reverence, their faces mirroring the canyon's rugged hues as they gathered around Sita's pyre. The flames had dwindled to a gentle glow, the sand around it darkened by melted wax and ash, a testament to her sacrifice. Kono knelt, offering a prayer in Apache, his voice a deep chant that reverberated through the cliffs, honoring a leader who had transcended her role as protector and mother. Samuel watched, his hands trembling as he placed her spear once her strength onto the pyre, a silent vow to carry her legacy forward. Quayo, Tala, and the warriors joined him, adding the amulet, a woven mat, and a bundle of herbs, their offerings a tribute to her courage. "She saved us," Quayo said, his voice soft but resolute. "You kept her promise." Samuel nodded, the words a balm to his wounded soul, a redemption he hadn't dared to claim. The journey to the hidden tribal camp began, the warriors carrying the pyre's remnants through the canyon's rocky pass, its ashes a sacred burden. The trail was treacherous, the sand shifting underfoot, the heat of the day giving way to a cooling breeze that carried the promise of renewal. Samuel walked with them, his leg aching from the graze but his spirit lifted by their unity. The camp emerged a sheltered valley nestled between towering mesas, its floor dotted with mesquite and a faint shimmer of a spring fed by an underground stream. The Apache survivors greeted them, their faces etched with grief for Sita but warmth for her savior. Tala led Samuel to the spring, its waters clear and life-giving, reflecting the cavern walls adorned with painted symbols and woven mats, a sanctuary Sita had died to protect. "Her spirit guards this place," Tala said. "You are kin." The tribe gathered around a fire that night, the valley's walls amplifying their voices as they shared tales of Sita's bravery. Her gifts to Samuel, her trust, the amulet were now symbols of her legacy, their weight heavier than the healing rites they represented. They offered him a place among them, their eyes reflecting gratitude and hope. "You fought for her," Kono said, handing him a woven mat. "Stay, and find peace." Samuel hesitated, his mind drifting to his past, a settler broken by drought and loss. His wife's death a guilt he'd carried like a stone. Sita's words, "You're my brother," echoed, her sacrifice a key to unlock that prison. "I'll stay," he said finally, "but I'll bring my skills to your valley. With your help." The days that followed were a blend of mourning and rebuilding. The Apache taught Samuel their ways, how to channel the spring's water for crops, how to weave mats from agave, how to use their healing rites with herbs by the fire. Quayo became his shadow, the boy's knowledge of his mother's traditions complementing Samuel's farming expertise, while other tribal children joined them, their laughter a rare sound. They constructed a small adobe home near the spring, its walls rising under their hands, a fusion of Apache resilience and Samuel's craftsmanship. The desert, once a place of solitude, became a bridge between worlds, its silence broken by the tribe's songs and the trickle of water, a stark contrast to the hollow quiet he'd known. One evening, as the sun set, painting the valley in shades of orange and purple, Samuel stood at the spring's edge, the woven pouch a constant reminder. Quayo and the children joined him, holding a new pouch, a carved staff, and a bundle of herbs crafted by the tribe. "For us?" Quayo asked. Samuel nodded, his eyes misting as he handed them out. "Your mother would want you to have them," he said. Quayo smiled, a rare light in his young face. "She gave us a home." The sentiment lingered, a bond forged in the crucible of the desert, strengthened by the promise of a renewed life. The tribe celebrated with a feast, their songs filling the valley, Sita's name woven into the melodies. Samuel learned her story in full, how she'd fought to protect Quayo during Cole's raid, how she'd hidden the amulet to save their healing rites, how her spirit now watched over them. His past, his failure to save his wife, his years of isolation faded against her forgiveness. He wasn't just a settler anymore, but a guardian, a father to those he'd once failed. Kono approached, offering a carved wooden bowl. "Lead with her spirit," he said. Samuel took it, his hand steady. "I will." Weeks later, the valley thrived, its spring nourishing new crops, its people strengthened by Samuel's aid. The tribe, true to their promise, began the journey back to Sagebrush Hollow, bringing materials in hands to heal the land and restore Samuel's homestead, transforming the ruined fields into a symbol of renewal. He rebuilt his life, the tribe's help a lifeline, their stories a balm to his loneliness. Sita's spear hung above the new home's door, a shrine to her sacrifice, its blade a silent witness. The desert stretched vast, its red sands a testament to their fight, but it was no longer a place of solitude. Samuel's redemption was complete, not in land, but in the family he'd found: Quayo, Kono, Tala, the tribe all bound by Sita's legacy. As the sun rose over Red Canyon, its golden light bathed the valley and the distant silhouette of the reborn homestead, a promise of a new beginning. Samuel stood at the home's threshold, the wooden bowl at his side, the woven pouch gleaming. He was no longer just a settler who'd offered aid, but a father to a boy whose mother's courage had saved him, whose amulet had turned peril into a legacy of strength. The desert whispered her name, and Samuel carried it forward, a renewed haven born from the ashes of sacrifice, with the promise of a healed home anchoring their future.